I'm Zoe, 30 years old, and my family forgot my birthday again. But this time, instead of crying in my pillow, I did something that nearly gave my father a heart attack. Before I tell you how I turned the tables with a single Instagram post and a German engine, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I love seeing how far this story travels. The rain in Seattle doesn't just fall, it erodes. It wears you down, layer by layer, until you feel raw and exposed. That's exactly how I felt sitting on my beige sectional sofa, staring at a single vanilla cupcake I'd picked up from the grocery store, on my way home from work. It was 8 p.m. The candle in the center of the frosting remained unlit. I didn't have a lighter, and honestly, I didn't have the energy to go find one. 30. The big 30. It's supposed to be a milestone, right? The kind of birthday where your friends drag you out for overpriced cocktails, or your parents send you a card with a check inside, or at the very least, a text message. My phone sat on the coffee table, screen black, silent as a grave. I had checked it 40 times in the last hour. Nothing. No missed calls. No texts. Not even a generic Facebook notification. Just the sound of the rain tapping against the glass of my downtown apartment, a rhythm that felt increasingly like a mocking applause. I picked up the phone again. It's a form of emotional self-harm, I know, but I unlocked it and opened Instagram. My thumb moved on autopilot, scrolling past ads for teeth whitening and photos of people's lunches, until I landed on it. The post that knocked the wind out of me. It was a photo posted by my mother, Evelyn. There was my younger sister, Chloe, standing on a stage, clutching a violin bow like it was a royal scepter. She looked radiant, I'll give her that. The stage lights caught the sequins on her dress, making her look like she was glowing from within. The caption read, "Our brilliant star. Another standing ovation for Chloe tonight. Your father and I couldn't be prouder of your magnificent performance. You were born to shine, my angel." I swallowed hard, fighting the familiar lump in my throat. The timestamp showed it was posted 2 hours ago. While I was walking through the rain to buy my own birthday cupcake, my parents were sitting in a plush auditorium, cheering for my sister. I clicked on the comments. There was my dad, Arthur. "That's my girl. Talent like that is 1 in a million. 1 in a million. And I was just one of the other 999,999. You might think I'm being dramatic. Maybe they just forgot. People get busy, right? But you have to understand, this isn't a one-time oversight. This is the pattern of my entire life. In the Vance family, there is the sun, which is Chloe, and then there are the rest of us, orbiting in the cold, dark vacuum of space, hoping to catch a stray ray of warmth. The memory hit me then, unbidden and sharp. I was 10 years old. I was wearing a pink dress that scratched my neck, sitting on the bottom step of our staircase. It was my birthday then, too. I had invitations written out for a party at the roller rink. I remembered my mother rushing past me, her purse slung over her shoulder, her face flushed with that frantic energy she always had when it concerned Chloe. "Zoe, take that dress off, we're not going," she had snapped. "But my party," I had whispered. "Chloe has a fever. She's burning up. We have to go to urgent care right now. Do you want your sister to get worse because you want to skate in circles?" I remembered the guilt washing over me, hot and shameful. I took off the dress. We spent my 10th birthday in a waiting room. Chloe turned out to have a mild sinus infection. We never rescheduled the party. Dad had patted my head and said, "We'll celebrate next weekend, kiddo." Next weekend never came. They forgot. And I learned a valuable lesson that day. In this family, my needs were negotiable. Chloe's were mandatory. I shook my head, pulling myself back to the present. I was 30 years old. I was an adult. I paid my own mortgage. I paid my own taxes. I didn't need them to validate my existence. Happy birthday to me, I whispered to the empty room. I took a bite of the cupcake. The frosting was too sweet, gritty with sugar. It tasted like disappointment. I set the cupcake down and opened my banking app. I needed to see something real. Something tangible. The numbers loaded on the screen. Checking, $15,400. Savings, $115,000. I stared at that second number. It was the result of years of skipped vacations, packed lunches, and the massive, record-breaking bonus I had just received for the Sapphire Lounge project. $115,000. It was enough for a down payment on a house. It was enough to invest in a diverse portfolio. It was enough to be responsible, which was the only adjective my father ever used to describe me. Zoe is the responsible one, he'd say to his friends, which was code for Zoe is the boring one. My thumb hovered over the screen. I thought about the text I wanted to send. Hey Mom, Dad. It's my birthday. Did you forget? But I knew the response. Oh honey, we're so busy with Chloe's tour prep. Don't be so sensitive. We'll do dinner next month. Next month. Next weekend. Next lifetime. Something snapped inside me. It wasn't a loud snap, like a bone breaking. It was quiet, like a thread finally giving way under too much tension. I was done waiting. I was done being the responsible one. I was done saving for a rainy day, when I was currently drowning in a monsoon of neglect. I closed the banking app and opened Google. I typed in 2 words that I had been secretly researching for months, late at night when I couldn't sleep. Portia McCung. Not just any McCung. The night blue metallic. The one with the premium leather package and the panoramic sunroof. The car that screamed success. The car that my father, a man who drove a practical, beat-up sedan and lectured me on frugality, had drooled over in magazines for as long as I could remember. He always said, one day, when the investments pay off, maybe I'll treat myself. But he never did. He spent his money on Chloe's lessons, Chloe's instruments, Chloe's dresses. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window. I saw a woman with tired eyes and a slump in her shoulders. But beneath that, I saw a spark of defiance. If they won't celebrate me, I said aloud, my voice stronger this time, I'll celebrate myself. I didn't just want a car. I wanted armor. I wanted a 400 horsepower Declaration of Independence. I picked up the phone and dialed the number for Seattle Porsche. It was late, but I knew they had an online concierge. This is Trevor with Porsche Seattle, a smooth voice answered. How can I assist you this evening? Hi Trevor, I said. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but my voice was steady. I'm looking at the night blue McCung you have in stock. The S model. Ah, a lady with taste, Trevor said. That's a beautiful vehicle. Were you looking to come in for a test drive later this week? I looked at the sad, half-eaten cupcake. I looked at the silence of my apartment. Actually, I said, a smile curling the corner of my lips for the first time all day. I'm coming in tomorrow morning. And Trevor. I'm not just coming to drive it. I'm coming to buy it. Fantastic, Trevor replied, his tone brightening. I'll have the keys ready. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness anymore. It was adrenaline. For 30 years, I had been the background character in my own life. Tomorrow, I was stepping into the driver's seat. The next morning, the rain had stopped, leaving the Seattle sky a piercing, clean gray. I walked into my office at Sterling and Vance Architecture, no relation to my family name, just a happy coincidence that always annoyed my father, with a stride that felt different. Morning, boss. Ben, my design assistant, chirped from his desk. He was 24, fueled entirely by espresso and optimism, and he was the only person who looked at me like I hung the moon. The renderings for the lobby are done. Anne, happy birthday. He pulled a small, wrapped box from his drawer. It was a mug that said World's Okayest Architect, but the word okayest was crossed out with permanent marker and replaced with most badass. I actually teared up. Thanks, Ben. You have no idea how much this means. Did the family do anything big? He asked, leaning back in his chair. I smiled tightly. Oh, you know. The usual. Ben grimaced. He knew the usual. He knew about the time I won the Pacific Design Award, and my mother asked if the trophy was real gold so we could sell it to pay for Chloe's flight to Vienna. Well, screw M, Ben said cheerfully. You're the one who just landed the Sapphire Lounge project. That's huge, Zoe. That's career-defining. He was right. The Sapphire Lounge wasn't just a renovation, it was a complete overhaul of the flagship property for Marcus Sterling's luxury hotel chain. Marcus Sterling was a billionaire, a titan of the industry, and notoriously difficult to please. He had personally requested me for the job after seeing my work on a boutique hotel in Portland. When I had told my father about the commission, expecting a congratulations, he had frowned over his newspaper. Hotels are risky, Zoe. And dealing with billionaires? They chew people up. Are you sure you're not biting off more than you can chew? Maybe you should stick to residential renovations. It's safer. Safer. That was his word for me. Chloe was brilliant, daring, exceptional. I was safe. I was the backup plan. The safety net. Architects are basically just glorified drawers, aren't they? He had said once at a barbecue, loudly enough for everyone to hear. I mean, the engineers do the real math. The artists make the real beauty. Architects just connect the dots. I sat at my desk, running my fingers over the blueprints for the Sapphire Lounge. I wasn't connecting dots. I was creating experiences. I was manipulating light and space to make people feel something. I was good at this. I was great at this. Why was it so hard for them to see me? My computer screen stared back at me. I opened the tab I had left open from the night before. The Porsche Macan. It wasn't just about the luxury. It was about the agency. Growing up, money was always a weapon in our house. We can't afford new soccer cleats for you, Zoe. Chloe's violin needs restringing. We can't help you with tuition, Zoe. Chloe's conservatory is expensive. I had worked 3 jobs in college. I had graduated with honors and zero debt, while they took out second mortgages to fund Chloe's artistic journey. I had built my savings dollar by dollar, eating instant ramen while Chloe posted photos of lobster dinners in Paris that my parents paid for. They thought I was frugal because I liked it. They didn't realize I was frugal because I was terrified. Terrified of being helpless. Terrified of needing them and being told no again. But looking at that bank balance yesterday shifted something. I didn't need to be terrified anymore. I had the power. I stood up. Ben, cancel my morning meetings. Ben looked up, surprised. Everything. Even the contractor sink. Push it to the afternoon, I said, grabbing my coat. I have an errand to run. Is everything okay? Everything is perfect, I said. I'm just going to go get what I deserve. I took an Uber to the dealership. The ride felt like a transition between 2 worlds. I looked out the window at the passing city. I thought about the text I still hadn't received. It was 10 a.m. now. Still silence from the family group chat. Wait, no. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out, my heart leaping. It was a text from Aunt Linda, my mother's sister. Happy birthday, Zoe. Hope you're having a great day at work. Linda. The gossip queen. But at least she remembered. I sent back a heart emoji. Still nothing from Mom, Dad, or Chloe. I arrived at Porsche Seattle. The building was glass and steel, sleek and intimidating. A year ago, I would have felt small standing in front of it. I would have worried that I didn't belong, that they would look at my sensible shoes and my off-the-rack blazer and ask me to leave. But today, I walked in with the knowledge of that $115,000 in my pocket. It's amazing how much confidence financial liquidity gives you. The showroom smelled of expensive espresso and new leather. The cars were arranged like sculptures in a museum. And there in the center was the Mekong. It was darker than I expected. Night blue metallic. It looked almost black until the light hit it, and then it shimmered with a deep, midnight navy. It looked dangerous. It looked sophisticated. Zoe? I turned. A man in a sharp suit was approaching me. He had a practiced smile, but his eyes were kind. This must be Trevor. That's me, I said, extending my hand. Welcome. She's a beauty, isn't she? He gestured to the car. She is, I agreed. I ran my hand along the hood. The metal was cool and smooth. We actually had a gentleman in here last week looking at this exact model, Trevor said conversationally as he unlocked the door for me. Older guy. Spent about an hour sitting in it. He kept talking about the engine specs, really knew his stuff. But in the end, he said the financing wouldn't work out with his retirement plans. Walked away looking like he'd lost a friend. My stomach tightened. An older guy. Knows specs. Worried about retirement. What did he look like? I asked. Tall, gray hair, glasses. Had a bit of a limp in his left leg. I froze. That was my father. He had been here. He had sat in this car. The car he claimed was a waste of money whenever I mentioned luxury brands. He wanted it. He wanted it so bad he came to visit it. But he couldn't buy it. Why? Because he had spent his retirement fund on Chloe. Or because he just couldn't justify spending that money on himself. Whatever the reason, he had walked away. I looked at the driver's seat. I'd like to drive it, I said. Of course, Trevor said. I slid behind the wheel. The door closed with a solid, heavy thud that sounded like a bank vault locking. The silence inside was immediate. The world outside, the traffic, the rain, the noise of my family's neglect disappeared. I gripped the leather steering wheel. It felt thick and substantial. I wasn't just buying a car. I was buying the thing my father couldn't have. Was it petty? Maybe. Was it vindictive? Possibly. But as I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, I didn't see a petty daughter. I saw a woman who was done waiting for permission to live. Let's do this, I whispered. The test drive was a blur of adrenaline. The car responded to my touch like it was reading my mind. I merged onto the highway, pressed the gas, and felt the G-force press me back into the seat. For a few minutes, I wasn't Zoe the overlooked daughter. I was pure velocity. When we got back to the dealership, I parked the car and turned off the engine. My hands were vibrating. So, Trevor said, leaning against the doorframe. What do you think? I'll take it, I said. No hesitation. We went to the finance office. This is where the fantasy usually hits the speed bump of reality. The finance manager was a woman named Mrs. Higgins. She had silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and spectacles on a chain. She looked over her glasses at me, scanning my application. Ms. Vance, she said, her tone dry. You're quite young for a purchase of this magnitude. I sat straighter. I'm 30. Of course. I see here you've listed your income. Is this verified? Do you have a cosigner available? Perhaps a husband or a parent. The interest rates for single applicants with this debt-to-income ratio can be aggressive. There it was. The assumption that a woman my age couldn't possibly afford a $65,000 vehicle on her own. She assumed I was stretching myself thin, trying to look rich. I reached into my bag and pulled out my checkbook. "I won't be needing a cosigner, Mrs. Higgins," I said, my voice cool and professional. "And I'm not worried about the interest rate on the principal, because the principal is going to be quite small." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh? I'm putting $70,000 down. Today. Cashier's check." The room went silent. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed to get louder. Mrs. Higgins blinked. Her demeanor shifted instantly from condescending to deferential. "70,000, she repeated. "Well, that certainly changes the landscape. I'll finance the remaining balance over 12 months, I added. I like to keep my monthly expenses tidy. I watched her type the numbers into her computer. I felt a surge of satisfaction. This was the power of salary. This was the power of savings. This was the power of being the boring, responsible one for a decade. While Chloe was racking up debt and chasing applause, I was building a fortress. Signing the papers felt like signing a treaty with myself. Zoe Vance. Zoe Vance. Zoe Vance. Each signature was a confirmation of my worth. When I walked out of that office, keys in hand, Trevor was waiting by the car. They had detailed it while I was doing the paperwork. It gleamed under the showroom lights, a dark, dangerous jewel. "Congratulations, Zoe," Trevor said, handing me the fob. "You earned this." "Yes," I said, taking the key. It was heavy. I really did. I got in. I started the engine. The dashboard lit up, a futuristic display of technology and luxury. I connected my phone via Bluetooth. My playlist started playing. "Dog Days Are Over" by Florence and the Machine. Fitting. I pulled out of the lot, merging into the Seattle traffic. People looked. I saw heads turn. I saw a guy in a Ford Focus stare with open envy. But the real test wasn't the strangers. It was the audience that mattered. I drove toward Cary Park. It's the cliché spot for photos in Seattle, with the Space Needle and the skyline perfectly framed in the background. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. I parked the Porsche so the city lay spread out behind it. The clouds had parted enough for some sun to break through, hitting the metallic blue paint and making it sparkle. I got out and took a photo. Just the car, the city, and me leaning against the hood, wearing my trench coat and sunglasses, looking like I owned the entire Pacific Northwest. I opened Instagram. My thumb hovered over the post button. I thought about my mom's post from last night. "Our brilliant star." I typed my caption. Short. Brutal. True. 30 years. 0 parties. 1 Porsche. Happy birthday to me. Hashtag self-made, hashtag dirty 30, hashtag Porsche McCung. I hit post. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might crack a rib. I got back in the car and sat there waiting. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Sam, my college roommate, was the first. "Yes, Queen. OMG, look at you. That ride is sick. Happy birthday." Then Ben. "Boss moves only. Can I get a ride to the site visit tomorrow?" Fire, 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 then the likes started rolling in. Colleagues. High school friends. People I hadn't spoken to in years. The validation was instant and intoxicating. And then the phone rang. The screen lit up with the word MOM. It had been less than 10 minutes. I stared at the screen. I let it ring twice. 3 times. I took a deep breath, inhaling the new car smell of leather and success. I swiped answer. "Hello. Zoe." My mother's voice was so high-pitched it nearly shattered the Bluetooth speakers. "What on earth is that picture? Where are you? Whose car is that?" Hi Mom, I said calm as a frozen lake. Thanks for the birthday call. I'm doing great, thanks for asking. Don't get smart with me, she snapped. I saw your post. Everyone saw your post. Aunt Linda just texted me asking if you won the lottery. What is going on? Did you rent that car for attention? It's embarrassing, Zoe. You're making it look like we neglect you. You forgot my birthday, Mom, I said. Again. We did not forget. We have been incredibly busy with Chloe's schedule. You know how stressed she is. We were going to call you this weekend. It's Tuesday, I said. I heard a rustling sound, and then my father's voice boomed through the speakers. He sounded furious. Zoe? Is this true? Did you buy that car? Yes, Dad. I bought it. With what money? He sputtered. Have you lost your mind? That's a $60,000, maybe $70,000 vehicle. Do you have any idea what the insurance costs? You should be putting that money into an IRA, not blowing it on a depreciating asset. This is completely irresponsible. I put $70,000 down in cash, Dad, I said, cutting him off. And my retirement fund is fully maxed out for the year. But thanks for the financial advice. Silence. Dead silence on the other end. Then, my mother's voice returned, tighter this time. You put cash. Where did you get that kind of money, Zoe? Are you in trouble? Did you take out a loan? Is that why you didn't come to us? I earned it, Mom. I have a job. Remember? This is ridiculous, Dad growled. You're acting out. You're trying to make a scene because we missed one little date. One little date? I laughed, a harsh, dry sound. You haven't celebrated my birthday since I was 9 years old. We need to talk about this, Mom said, her voice switching to that managerial tone she used when planning Chloe's recitals. This behavior is unacceptable. You're embarrassing your sister. She saw the post and she's very upset. She thinks you're mocking her. Mocking her? I asked. How is my success mocking her? Just stop it. Take the post down. Right now. No, Zoe Vance. I'm not taking it down. It's my car. It's my birthday. It's my life. Dinner, my father barked. Tomorrow night. 6 o'clock sharp. At the house. You need to explain yourself. And bring the financial paperwork for that car. I want to see what kind of mess you've gotten yourself into. Is that an invitation or a summons? I asked. It's a demand, he said. Be there. The line went dead. I sat in the silence of my beautiful, expensive car. My hands were shaking again, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was rage. Pure, white-hot rage. They didn't care that they missed my birthday. They cared that I had exposed them. They cared that I had money they didn't know about. They cared that for the first time in my life, I was shining brighter than the golden child. I looked at the phone. A text came in from Chloe. Wow. Didn't think you could afford something like that. LOL. Hope you didn't lease it just to flex. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Thanks a lot for ruining my post-concert vibe. I didn't reply. I put the car in drive. Dinner at 6, I said to the dashboard. Okay. Let's have dinner. The next 24 hours were a strange mix of euphoria and dread. On one hand, my phone was a constant stream of dopamine. My Instagram post was blowing up. People I worked with, old professors, even the barista from my coffee shop were commenting. Deserved. Hard work pays off. That color is stunning. It was the kind of validation I had starved for. But every time I felt a surge of pride, I remembered the dinner looming ahead. My parents didn't want to celebrate. They wanted to investigate. They wanted to audit me. In their minds there was no way Zoe, the safe daughter, the background daughter, could afford a Porsche without doing something stupid or illegal. They were convinced I was in debt. They were convinced I was crashing. And honestly, they wanted me to be crashing. Because if I was crashing, they could swoop in and save me with their lectures and their condescension, restoring the natural order of the universe where Chloe is the star and Zoe is the charity case. I left work early on Wednesday. Big date? Ben asked as I packed my bag. Something like that, I said. Family dinner. Good luck, he said, sensing my tension. Remember, you're the boss. Don't let them treat you like the intern. I stopped by a high-end bakery on the way to the suburbs. I walked past the croissants and the macaroons and pointed to a rich, dark chocolate ganache cake. Can you write on it? I asked the baker, a sweet woman named Elena. Of course, honey. What do you want it to say? I hesitated. Usually, you buy a cake for someone else. Happy birthday, Zoe, I said. Then I paused. And add, from me to me. Elena looked up, her pen hovering. She looked at my face, saw the determination and the tiredness in my eyes. She didn't ask questions. She just smiled, a warm, genuine smile. You got it, she said. She wrote it in beautiful, swirling white icing. She boxed it up. Happy birthday, Zoe. I hope it's delicious. Thank you, I said, and I meant it more than any thank you I'd said in years. I put the cake in the passenger seat of the Porsche. It looked ridiculous there, a cardboard box on the premium leather, but it felt right. I drove to my parents' house in Bellevue. It was a nice house, a two-story colonial that they had mortgaged to the hilt to pay for Chloe's Juilliard tuition. As I turned onto the street, I saw Mrs. Gable, the next-door neighbor, watering her hydrangeas. She was the neighborhood watch, the CCTV of the block. I slowed down. I wanted her to see. I pulled into the driveway. My father's car, a 10-year-old beige sedan with a dent in the bumper, was parked on the left. I pulled the Porsche Macan right up next to it. The contrast was almost comical. It was like parking a spaceship next to a mule cart. The night blue metallic paint caught the evening sun, gleaming aggressively. I saw Mrs. Gable drop her hose. She was staring, mouth open. I stepped out of the car. I was wearing my best power suit, a tailored charcoal blazer and pants, and stilettos that clicked sharply on the pavement. I grabbed the cake box. The front door opened before I even reached the porch. My mother stood there. She was wearing her concerned mother face, lips pursed, eyebrows drawn together. You brought it here, she said, looking past me at the car. Her voice was a hiss. Do you know what the neighbors will think? They'll think I have a nice car, I said, brushing past her into the house. Dad was in the living room, sitting in his armchair with his arms crossed. He looked like a judge waiting to deliver a sentence. Chloe was on the sofa, scrolling on her phone. She didn't look up. Nice wheels, Chloe said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Did you rent it for the day, or is it a week-long thing? It's mine, Chloe, I said, setting the cake box on the dining room table. Sit down, Zoe, Dad said. He didn't say hello. He didn't say happy birthday. I sat. But I didn't slouch. I sat at the head of the table, opposite him. Let's get this over with, Dad said. I've been up all night worrying. We need to see the loan papers. We need to see the interest rate. If you signed a predatory loan, I might be able to call our lawyer and get you out of it before you ruin your credit score forever. I don't have loan papers to show you, Dad, I said. Don't lie to me. He slammed his hand on the armrest. A car like that it's beyond your means. You're an architect, Zoe. You draw house plans. You don't make Porsche money. Is that what you think I do? I asked quietly. Draw house plans. We know you do okay, Mom interjected, trying to play peacemaker but failing. But honey, living beyond your means is a slippery slope. We just don't want you to end up, struggling. Like you? I asked. The room went dead silent. Excuse me. Mom whispered. I know about the second mortgage, Mom, I said. I know about the credit card debt you racked up for Chloe's tour last year. I know you guys are barely scraping by. How dare you, Dad stood up, his face turning red. We sacrificed everything for this family. For your sister's talent. Exactly, I said. For her talent. Not for the family. For her. I'm right here, Chloe said, finally looking up. She looked indignant. And my talent is actually going somewhere. I'm an artist, Zoe. I bring beauty into the world. You just make rooms. I make rooms that people pay millions of dollars to stand in, I shot back. Enough. Dad shouted. This isn't about Chloe. This is about you making a reckless financial decision just to show off. You are going to return that car, Zoe. Tomorrow. You are going to eat the restocking fee, and you are going to apologize to your mother for causing this stress. I looked at them. The three of them, united in their judgment. They looked so small. So petty. No, I said. I reached for the cake box. I'm not returning the car. And I'm not apologizing. I opened the lid of the box. The smell of rich chocolate filled the tense air. I spun the cake around so they could read the writing. Happy birthday, Zoe. From me to me. Mom gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh, Zoe, she said, her eyes suddenly wet. That's just sad. It's not sad, I said, my voice steady. It's the truth. You forgot my 16th birthday. You gave me a grocery store cake while Chloe had a catered party for 50 people. You forgot my 20th because it was Chloe's graduation. You forgot my 30th because Chloe had a recital. We love you both equally, Dad lied. But Chloe needs more support. Her career is more demanding. Her career is a money pit, I said. And mine? Mine is a gold mine. I reached into my purse. I hadn't just brought the cake. I had brought something else. A folded piece of thick, cream-colored stationery. I slid it across the table toward my father. What is this? He asked, looking at it like it was a bomb. Read it, I said. My father picked up the letter. His hands were shaking slightly, whether from rage or age, I couldn't tell. He adjusted his glasses. It was the official appointment letter from Marcus Sterling. Dear Ms. Vance, Dad read aloud, his voice wavering. On behalf of Sterling Global, we are thrilled to confirm your appointment as lead architect for the International Expansion Division. He stopped. He looked up at me, confusion clouding his anger. Keep reading, I said. Read the compensation package. He looked back down. His eyes scanned the page. I saw the exact moment he hit the numbers. His eyes widened behind his bifocals. His jaw actually dropped. Base salary, he choked. 250, and the signing bonus, I prompted. $75,000, he whispered. Chloe snatched the paper from his hand. Let me see that. She scanned it, her eyes darting back and forth. This can't be real. Why would anyone pay you this much? You're just Zoe. That's right, I said, leaning back in my chair. Just Zoe. Just the girl who worked 3 jobs. Just the girl who studied while you practiced your scales. Just the girl who built a career while you were busy being a star. I looked at my mother. She was pale. She was doing the math in her head. She was realizing that the daughter she had neglected was currently earning 3 times what my father made at the peak of his career. "The car isn't a mistake, Dad," I said. "It's a rounding error. I paid for it with the bonus check. And I still have money left over to pay off my student loans." "Oh wait, I already did that 2 years ago. Unlike someone else." I looked pointedly at Chloe. "I'm an investment." Chloe shrieked, her face flushing pink. "My career takes time to mature." "You're 28, Chloe," I said. "And you're still asking Mom and Dad for rent money. I know about the text you sent Mom last week. Need 2K for headshots." Mom looked down at the table, ashamed. "We help family," Dad muttered, but the fire was gone from his voice. He looked at the letter again, then at me. He looked deflated. And strangely, he looked envious. "Marcus Sterling," Dad said softly. "You're working directly for Sterling." "He calls me on my cell," I said. "We have weekly strategy meetings. He likes my vision, Dad. He doesn't think I'm just a drawer. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was a different kind of silence than usual. It wasn't the silence of me being ignored. It was the silence of a hierarchy being shattered. For 30 years, the Vance family dynamic had been a pyramid. Chloe at the top, Mom and Dad holding her up, and me buried in the sand at the bottom. In 5 minutes, with 1 letter and 1 car, I had flipped the pyramid. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mom asked, her voice trembling. "Why didn't you tell us you were doing so well?" "Because you never asked," I said simply. "When was the last time you asked me about my work? Not just how's work, but actually asked what I was working on. When was the last time you came to see one of my buildings?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no answer. "You know what hurts the most?" I continued, my voice staying calm, which I knew was scarier to them than yelling. "It's not the money. It's that you assumed I was failing. You saw a nice car and your first instinct wasn't, 'Wow, Zoe must be doing great.' Your first instinct was, 'Zoe must have screwed up.' You have so little faith in me that my success looked like a crime to you." Dad took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. We worry. The economy is tough." "I'm not worried, Dad," I said. "I'm really not." I stood up. I smoothed down my blazer. "Where are you going?" Mom asked, half rising from her chair. "We haven't had dinner. The pot roast is almost done." "I'm not hungry," I said. "And honestly, I don't think I want to spend my birthday evening being audited." I looked at the chocolate cake sitting in the center of the table. The white icing was starting to sweat slightly in the warm room. "Keep the cake," I said. "It's Dad's favorite flavor. Chocolate with chocolate ganache." Dad looked at the cake. I saw a flicker of pain in his eyes. He realized I remembered his favorite flavor, even though he couldn't remember my birth date. "Zoe," he said, his voice gruff. "Sit down. Don't be dramatic." "It's not drama, Dad. It's boundaries." I walked to the door. "Wait." Chloe called out. "So that's it. You just drop a bomb that you're rich and then leave. Are you going to help us? Mom and Dad are drowning in debt because of the house repairs, and I have this tour coming up." I stopped. I turned around slowly. "You're kidding, right?" I asked. Chloe looked defiant. "We're family. If you have that much money, you should help. It's selfish to keep it all when we're struggling." I laughed. It was a genuine laugh of disbelief. "Chloe," I said. "You are a healthy, able-bodied adult with a master's degree. Get a job. Teach lessons. Play at weddings. Do what I did. Work. But I need to focus on my art." "Then focus on being a starving artist," I said. "Because the Bank of Zoe is closed." I looked at my parents. And Mom, Dad. If you need money, maybe you should sell the sedan. Or the piano. But don't call me. I have a very busy schedule with Mr. Sterling. I walked out the front door. The cool evening air hit my face, drying the sweat I hadn't realized was on my brow. The walk down the driveway felt like floating. My legs were shaking, but my spirit felt lighter than it had in decades. I reached the Porsche. I unlocked it, the lights flashing a friendly greeting in the dusk. As I opened the door, I looked back at the house. Through the large bay window, I could see them. A tableau of a family in crisis. Chloe was waving the letter in the air, yelling at Dad. Mom had her face buried in her hands, weeping. Dad was just sitting there, staring at the chocolate cake that said "From me to me." He looked old. For the first time, he didn't look like the imposing patriarch who dictated our lives. He looked like a tired old man who had bet on the wrong horse, and just realized he'd lost the farm. I felt a twinge of pity, but I tamped it down. Pity was the trap that had kept me stuck for years. Oh, poor Mom, she's stressed. Poor Dad, he works so hard. No more. I got into the car. The silence inside was instant and comforting. It was my sanctuary. I started the engine. The 2.9-liter twin-turbo V6 purred to life. It was a sound of power, of capability. I backed out of the driveway, careful not to scrape Dad's sedan. Mrs. Gable was still on her porch, pretending to sweep now. I gave her a little wave. She waved back, looking stunned. I drove away. I didn't blast music this time. I drove in silence. I navigated the winding streets of Bellevue, heading back toward the bridge to Seattle. The city lights were twinkling in the distance, a cluster of diamonds against the velvet night. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I glanced at it. A text from Chloe. "You're a bitch." I smiled. Blocked. Another text. "Mom. Zoe, please come back. We didn't mean to upset you. We're just shocked. Please, let's talk." I didn't block her, but I didn't reply. I let the phone screen go dark. Then, a third notification. This one was different. It was an email. Subject: The Sapphire Lounge update from Marcus Sterling. Zoe, I reviewed the final lighting schematics. Brilliant work on the atrium. This is exactly the kind of bold vision I was looking for. Let's discuss the Tokyo project next week. The Tokyo project. I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding since I was 10 years old. I wasn't just the girl who didn't get a birthday party. I was the lead architect for the Tokyo project. I was going places. Literally. I merged onto the floating bridge. The water of Lake Washington was black and choppy below. I thought about the cake sitting on that table. I hoped Dad ate a slice. I hoped it tasted bitter. I hoped every bite reminded him of the birthday he missed, and the daughter he underestimated. But as I drove closer to the city, the anger started to fade, replaced by a profound sense of peace. I had done it. I had faced the dragon in its lair, and I had walked out unscathed. I remembered something Trevor, the salesman, had said about the older man, my dad, looking at the car. He walked away looking like he'd lost a friend. Dad hadn't just lost a friend. He had lost his control. He realized tonight that the narrative he had built, that Chloe was the star and I was the support staff, was a fiction. And the twist. I found out later what happened after I left. According to Aunt Linda, who heard it from Mom the next day, the fight didn't end when I walked out. Apparently, Chloe tried to argue that my letter was fake. She tried to tell Dad that I forged it. But Dad knows Marcus Sterling's signature. He's followed the man's career for 30 years. And then, in the heat of the argument, Chloe slipped up. She screamed, "Well, at least I'm not hoarding money." I'm spending it on my career. I just need you to cover the Amex bill this month, it's only $4,000. $4,000. On top of the $2,000 she asked for last week. Mom finally snapped. She asked to see Chloe's credit card statements. I wasn't there to see it, but Linda said it was a bloodbath. Chloe is in debt up to her eyeballs. Designer clothes, first-class flights, networking dinners. She's been funding a millionaire lifestyle on a pauper's income, all assuming that one day she'd be famous, or that I'd always be there to bail the family out. Tonight, I cut the safety net. I pulled into the parking garage of my apartment building. I parked my beautiful, blue Porsche in my designated spot. I turned off the engine. I sat there for a moment, listening to the ticking of the cooling metal. This is the moment that changes everything. When I finally took back control of my life. I walked up to my apartment. It was quiet, but it didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt peaceful. I went to the fridge, took out a bottle of champagne I had been saving, and poured myself a glass. I walked to the window and looked out at the rain starting to fall again. Happy birthday, Zoe. The silence that followed that night was heavy, but it wasn't empty. For the first time in my life, the silence wasn't about me waiting for them to notice me. It was about me giving them space to figure out who they were without my compliance. 3 months passed. 3 months of the Seattle rain turning into the tentative, blooming green of spring. My life had accelerated in ways I hadn't even dared to put on my vision board. The Tokyo project with Marcus Sterling was in full swing. I was flying business class, paid for by the company, not my savings, and leading meetings with engineers who actually listened when I spoke. My phone remained quiet on the family front. I had unblocked Chloe after a week, mostly out of curiosity, but I hadn't reached out. Mom sent a few generic, hope you're well texts, the kind you send to a distant cousin you only see at funerals. I replied with I'm great, and left it at that. Then, on a Tuesday morning, the first crack in the dam appeared. I was at my desk, reviewing lighting specs, when my phone buzzed. It was Chloe. Can we meet? Coffee? Please. I have something for you. My first instinct was to say no. I was busy. I was important. I didn't have time for her drama. But there was something about the please. It lacked her usual demand for attention. It sounded small. I texted back, 10 a.m. The Starbucks near my office. You have 30 minutes. She was there 10 minutes early. That was the first shock. Chloe was never early. She believed waiting was for other people. The second shock was her appearance. The Chloe I knew was always polished to a high shine, hair blown out, makeup perfect, designer logos visible from space. The woman sitting at the corner table wore a simple gray sweater, jeans, and no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she looked tired. Not the artistically exhausted look she used to curate, but actual, bone-deep fatigue. I walked over. I didn't hug her. I sat down. Hi, she said, her voice raspy. She was clutching a paper cup like it was a lifeline. Hi, I said. You wanted to see me. She took a deep breath. I'm teaching now. I blinked. Teaching what? Piano and violin. At the community center. And I have 5 private students. Mostly 6-year-olds who bang on the keys with sticky fingers. I leaned back. I thought teaching was beneath you. I thought it was for failed artists. That was a direct quote from her, 2 years ago. She flinched. Yeah. Well. Turns out, landlords don't accept artistic potential as rent payment. Dad cut me off, Zoe. After that night, after Mom saw the credit card statements. Dad cut me off. Completely. I felt a surge of grim satisfaction, followed quickly by a surprising pang of sympathy. My father, who couldn't say no to her for 28 years, had finally drawn a line. Good, I said. It's about time. I know, she whispered. She looked down at her coffee. I sold my Celine bag. And the Louboutins. That paid off the interest on the Amex. I'm paying the rest down slowly. She reached into her tote bag, a canvas one, not leather, and pulled out a small, rectangular box. She slid it across the table. Happy belated birthday, she said. I looked at the box. I didn't touch it. Chloe, if this is some kind of, it's not, she interrupted. Open it. Please. It's not from Mom and Dad. It's from me. I bought it with the money from my first month of teaching. I opened the box. Inside was a silver pendant on a delicate chain. It was a compass. Not a cheap trinket, but a solid piece of silver. Because you found your own way, she said, her eyes filling with tears. Without a map. Without help. You just went. I touched the cold metal. It was beautiful. I was so jealous of you, Zoe, she confessed, the words rushing out now. My whole life, everyone told me I was the star. The genius. Do you know how much pressure that is? I felt like I had to be perfect every second. If I wasn't shining, I wasn't anything. But you were just steady. You were free. You could make mistakes and no one noticed. I hated you for that freedom. Free? I asked, my voice rising slightly. I wasn't free, Chloe. I was invisible. There's a difference. I know, she wiped a tear from her cheek. I know that now. I was the sun, right? Mom always called me that. But the problem with being the sun is that you burn everyone around you. I burned you. I'm sorry. It wasn't a magic fix. It didn't erase 30 years of neglect. But it was real. For the first time, I was looking at my sister, not the golden child. Thank you for the compass, I said softly. I like it. We didn't hug when we left. We weren't there yet. But we shook hands and for the first time, her grip was firm, grounded in reality. 2 weeks later, I drove the Porsche to my parents' house. I needed to pick up some old boxes stored in the attic, yearbooks, some college portfolios I wanted for a presentation on evolution of style. Dad was in the driveway washing his sedan. When I pulled up in the Mekong, he didn't scowl. He stopped scrubbing, wiped his hands on a rag, and walked over. He walked around the Porsche, inspecting it. You keeping up with the maintenance schedule? He asked. He kicked a tire gently. These German cars, you miss an oil change by 100 miles, and the whole system goes haywire. It was the most fatherly thing he had said to me in a decade. He wasn't talking about money. He wasn't judging. He was speaking in the only love language he knew, car maintenance. I took it in last week, Dad, I said. Clean bill of health. Good, he nodded, not meeting my eyes. Good. That's a smart engine. Twin turbo, right? Yeah. Fast, he murmured. It suits you. He turned back to his bucket of soapy water before I could see the emotion in his face. Mom's inside. She made pot roast. Just in case you stopped by. I went inside. The house felt smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I had just grown out of it. Mom was in the kitchen. She hugged me, a little too tight, a little too desperate. I'm just here for the boxes in the attic, Mom, I said, gently extricating myself. I'll help you, she offered. No, I've got it. I went up to the dusty attic. It smelled of cedar and old memories. I found my stack of boxes in the corner, pushed behind a massive display of Chloe's old recital costumes. Even in storage, she took up more space than me. I started shifting boxes, looking for my college portfolio. I moved a heavy plastic bin labeled Evelyn's Keepsakes. The lid was loose and it tipped over, spilling papers onto the floor. I sighed and knelt to clean it up. It was mostly old greeting cards, recipes, and a bundle of envelopes tied with a blue ribbon. I recognized the logo on the top envelope. University of Washington, School of Architecture. My heart stopped. I untied the ribbon. There were 5 letters. One was an invitation to my sophomore year showcase. One was for the Dean's List ceremony junior year. One was for my senior capstone presentation. I remembered these events. I remembered waiting in the lobby, scanning the crowd for my parents' faces. I remembered calling home afterwards and Mom saying, "Oh honey, we never got the flyer. The mail must have lost it." Besides, Chloe had rehearsals. I opened the senior capstone letter. It had been opened. They hadn't been lost. They had been hidden. My hands shook. The anger I thought I had released came rushing back, cold and sharp. I marched downstairs, the letters in my hand. Mom was setting the table. She looked up, saw my face, saw the letters, and went pale. "You hid them," I said. It wasn't a question. She put down a fork. Her hands were trembling. "Zoe, that was a long time ago. You told me the mail lost them." I stepped closer. "I spent years thinking I wasn't important enough for the post office to deliver my mail. But it was you." "Why?" She looked at the floor. "Your father, you know how he is about schedules. If he knew about your events, he would have felt obligated to go. But Chloe needed him. She gets such stage fright if he's not there. I wanted to keep the peace. I didn't want him to have to choose." "So you chose for him," I said. "You chose Chloe. Every single time. You didn't just neglect me, Mom. You actively erased me. You curated his love so that I didn't get any." "I was trying to hold the family together," she cried. "No," I said. "You were managing a stage production. And I was just a prop you threw in the closet." I dropped the letters on the table. "I'm keeping the compass Chloe gave me," I said. "And I'm keeping the car Dad admires. But you? I don't know what to keep of you, Mom. Because everything you gave me was a lie." I turned to leave. "Zoe, please," she sobbed. "Stay for dinner. Please." I stopped at the door. I looked at her, crying over a pot roast that was probably delicious. "I'll stay," I said. She looked up, hopeful. "But not tonight," I continued. "And not here. Next week. Saturday. I'm taking us out to dinner. My treat. My choice of restaurant. And we are going to talk about these letters. If you want to be in my life, Mom, you're going to have to audition for the role. Because you lost the part a long time ago." I walked out. Dad was still washing his car. He waved as I drove past. I waved back. It wasn't a happy ending. It was a real one. 1 year later. The Seattle skyline was exactly the same, but the view from my corner office was completely different. I spun my chair around to look at the city. It was raining again, a classic September drizzle, but inside, the air was warm and smelled of fresh lilies. My assistant, a bright young woman named Sarah, then had been promoted to junior partner, my recommendation, walked in with a massive bouquet of flowers. "These just arrived," she said, beaming. "Happy 31st birthday, Zoe." She set them on my desk. They were white lilies and blue hydrangeas. The card read, "To our brilliant architect. We can't wait to see what you build next. Love, Mom and Dad." It wasn't "our brilliant star." It wasn't excessive praise. It was measured. It was respectful. And it was on time. I smiled. "They're nice. Put them by the window." My phone pinged. A text from Dad. 7 a.m. Happy birthday, kid. Saw a Mekong Turbo on the highway today. Reminded me of you. Drive safe. Love, Dad. I texted back, thanks, Dad. Love you too. It was simple. It wasn't the warm, fuzzy movie relationship where we bake cookies together and braid each other's hair. We still had scars. Mom still sometimes talked too much about Chloe's students, and Dad still got awkward when I talked about my salary. But the dynamic had shifted permanently. I wasn't the invisible daughter anymore. I was the formidable one. They respected me, and more importantly, they were a little bit afraid of losing me again. And that fear made them better parents. I left work at 5 p.m. sharp. No overtime tonight. I walked down to the garage. The Porsche was parked in its reserved spot, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I had put 12,000 miles on it in the last year. Every mile was a memory of a meeting I crushed, a site visit I commanded, or a weekend drive where I simply enjoyed my own company. I got in and threw my bag on the passenger seat. I touched the silver compass around my neck. Chloe and I were having dinner on Friday. She was bringing her new boyfriend, a high school math teacher. She said he was boring but stable, and she sounded happier than I'd ever heard her. I started the car. The engine roared to life, a sound that still gave me a thrill. I pulled out into the rainy streets, heading toward the highway. I wasn't going home yet. I was going for a drive along the coast. As I merged onto I-5, the rain started to clear up. The clouds broke, revealing a stunning sunset, painting the sky in purples and golds. I thought about the girl sitting on the beige sofa with an unlit candle. That girl felt like a stranger now. She was a ghost who haunted an apartment I no longer lived in. I had moved into a townhouse in Queen, and last month. It had a view of the water and a garage for the Porsche. I had designed the renovation myself. I rolled down the window, letting the cool wind whip through my hair. People think a luxury car is about status. They think it's about showing off to the neighbors or proving you're better than everyone else. And sure, maybe for some people it is. But for me, this car was never about the leather seats or the badge on the hood. It was a physical manifestation of a promise I made to myself in the dark. It was the moment I stopped waiting for someone else to hand me the keys to my own life. I pressed the accelerator. The car surged forward, effortless and powerful. I am Zoe Vance. I am 31 years old. I am the lead architect of my own destiny. And I am finally, truly, in the driver's seat. You cannot wait for the people who hurt you to suddenly wake up and decide to heal you. They won't. You have to heal yourself. You have to validate yourself. You have to buy your own cake, light your own candle, and sometimes, drive yourself away from the table where love is no longer being served. Financial independence was my tool, but your tool might be different. It might be your voice, your art, or simply your refusal to engage in toxic patterns. Whatever it is, use it. Don't apologize for your success, and never apologize for outgrowing the box people put you in. Now, I want to hear from you. This was a long ride, and I appreciate every single one of you who stuck around until the engine cooled down. Drop a comment below sharing your story. Or if you just enjoyed the ride and the lessons learned, simply comment the word good. Seeing that word tells me that these stories are landing, that they matter, and that we are building a community of people who refuse to be invisible. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your life. Until next time, keep driving forward.